Hello everyone, this is Osama Rizvi and coming to you from Primary Vision Network, and welcome to another episode of Monday Macro View. Today we're going to we're going to gauge the global economic indicators and see where do we stand in terms of the overall recessionary debate. Europe is in recession, Germany is in recession, New Zealand is in recession, Australia is sort of flirting with one. The UK would end up in a recession if the interest rate goes up until 6%. They're right now at 5% already, so that would be happening as well. But in terms of the global recession, we still aren't there, especially in terms of the US. So in this installment of the Monday Macro View, I'm going to talk about a few indicators and maybe from oil markets, from Taiwan exports, Chinese exports, and really gauge that where are we heading. So for the first slide, you have a news item from the oil markets where you see China storing massive amounts of oil in May. This is happening despite a robust, or rather a record high refinery processing. Despite this, China was able to store 730,000 barrels in the first 5 months of 2023, which is record high in the recent years. So why isn't this surprising? Because Mark has been covering the Chinese economy as a specific segment in the Econ show from quite a while. And we have been of the view that Chinese economy has some underlying economic issues, which are now being manifested in the recent economic data. You talk about factory output, you talk about PMIs, you talk about the precipitation rate, you talk about other things, the credit impulse specifically. They're also preparing for another stimulus. So, and we don't know how much stimulus is required to, really get the economy going. So this news item ties neatly with the other developments. Why is this important? Because this shows overall slowdown in the global markets. China is the second largest economy in the world. And the next news item also feeds into this thread, which is the Eurozone. So Europe, as we discussed in the beginning, is already in a recession officially, and the industrial recession continues to intensify. The data shows that the Purchasing Managers Survey, which tracks the Composite Activity Index, it slipped to 43.6 from 44.6 previous month, which last year was 52 at the same time of the year. So anything above 50 shows expansion, we all know that, and below it shows contraction, and you see that it has fallen down to 43, which isn't a very good place to be. The next slide is something that I mentioned to or alluded to in the last market sentiment tracker. You have the Bloomberg economic data tracker, and they have tracked about 10 indicators globally, out of which 6 are below normal, only 4 are at the normal range, and none of them are above normal. You see in the first slide, you see shipping, the port of LA cargo, the Singapore port, and you see the volumes are way down, -3%, -2%. John Kemp has spoken about it as well. So all of these news items, sort of the whole narrative becomes quite holistic and quite unanimous that the global economy, the real side of the economy is suffering from a lot of issues from the previous 7-8 months. You look at the other side, you look at German expectations. So this is a survey by IFO of about 9,000 firms. And the German recession is expected to even worsen in the coming days. You look at the US exports, not a good outlook. They are falling naturally. China, other markets like Japan, Asian markets, they're all facing tough conditions. And we will talk about the Asian economies, or rather the developing countries, in a few slides. But even if you look at the Hong Kong port cargo, you look at the Baltic Dry Index, you look at the number of cargo being handled at London Heathrow, you look at the truck tonnage in the US, you look at the number of shipping containers handled at the 9 largest shipping ports in the US, all of them are down. Some of them are down by double digits. So that speaks a lot about the possibility of a recession in the world's largest economy, the US. One of the things it is very important to mention here, one of the things that keeps me confused as well, or is unclear, is the rather surprisingly strong labor markets in the US. Some are of the view that all of this effect would spill over into them moving forwards, which I think makes sense. But so far, so good. They are looking strong. That is the only thing, trust me, holding the US back from falling into a recession. But the next slide talks about the export volumes from Korea, Taiwan, the semiconductors, the electric exports and demand of these products have suffered massively. China, we've spoken about China a lot. This is the view. You can see this highlighted in pink. This is the export view from 3,000 manufacturing firms. Similarly, Singapore Electronics is down. Before we go to the market sentiment tracker, as I mentioned, we must look at what's happening in the developing countries. And I've always been focused here because according to EIA, according to EIA, according to World Bank, IMF, and all of these various agencies and organizations, this part of the world is the one which is going to be the driver of demand. And things have been pretty bad here. You look at, so Martin Wolf wrote about it in the recent Financial Times issue. He speaks about a poly crisis, which tends to only get worse because you have energy issues, you have climate issues, you have food prices, you have external debt issues, all of them happening at the same time. According to estimates, the majority of the poor countries are expected to suffer from income loss. Their income would be, according to the survey, 1/3 of the poor countries would have income that would be at 2019 levels in 2024. So you can imagine what does that entail. That entails a huge, rather unprecedented fall in income levels, purchasing power. Meanwhile, as the food prices specifically continues to rise, the cost of borrowing has also created for countries, and it has jumped about 15% within 1 year. That creates a lot of issues at the external front. Pakistan specifically is going through all of these issues, is experiencing this. In the next slide, you have the number of new trade policy interventions. This is about where is the overall direction of the global economy in terms of its liberalizing, its restricting. You can see that there has been a significant increase in the restricting sort of trade policies. That plays out that shows itself in the global freight monitor that we have discussed a lot, and all of those indicators show a fall in trading volumes. Similarly, the GDP per capita income as percentage of economy is also expected to fall in these emerging markets and developing countries. Finally, the market sentiment tracker. It talks about, you see that the left side, the recessionary side, is now completely thronged because we have been talking about it. Global container freight stuck in doldrums, oil prices are down, European manufacturing is down, UK registered fastest contraction in import and export volumes from Feb to April. Global markets are down, New Zealand is in a recession, and traffic at 9 major US ports remains 16% down in the first 5 months of 2023. So that's all from today. I'll see you all next week. Thank you so much for watching.